welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy this midweek episode. No, not midweek, God. This episode will be going over the forums and more specifically hardcore WoW forums, but we're going to also throw in an extra sort of general one in there. The weekly news for this week is Liskernoth and Zarkali Elders are your world bosses for the week. They are located in Thaldrasus as well as the Sarelak Caverns. Pet battles and arena skirmishes are your bonus event for the week. You get more honour for doing arenas and you get a little bit more XP for your pets when doing pet battles. Deepwing Dunk is your brawl for the week. You essentially have 3 different orbs in I forget the name of the battleground, but essentially it's kind of like a Arathi-style battleground where you capture certain points and get resources, but they are turned into orbs, and you take these orbs into the enemy base and you essentially dunk them as though you're playing basketball, something like that. Incorporeal, Sanguine, and Fortified are your mythic affixes for this week. Incorporeal, you basically just start to fade away, do what it says on the tooltip. It really isn't that difficult, to say the least. Sanguine, when you kill a mob, it puts a sort of red pool on the ground. You do not want to be standing in this red pool, as it does hurt, as well as do not let the mobs sit in it, as it will heal them for about 10% of their health per second. And Fortified, the non-boss enemies have more health, as well as minions they summon, so make sure you're bringing a talent build for that. Firstly, I would like to say a massive thank you to everyone who does tune in every week to the tavern. It is growing every week, and I love to see the new faces as well as the old faces here. I do have to ask for a little bit more of your support though. This podcast is not my full-time job, and I do put in as much effort as I can into it without having any sort of content hidden behind a paywall. With all of this said, down below there is a link to support the show even further. From as little as $3 a month, you can support the show, and it will help me get out more content for you guys. It will help me really push the show to be the best that it can be. I know times are tough at the moment, but those who support the show as well have a chance to be featured in the episode through a shout out or through even just like an interview sort of style episode. But thank you all very much for taking the time to listen. Now let's get back to the episode. Ghorhal is our weapon of choice to look at this week. Ghorhal is the weapon that was wielded by Grommash Hellscream and then passed down to his son Garrosh. So Ghorhal was forged 3 generations before Grommash inherited it. Grommash's great-grandfather used Ghorhal to kill 6 legendary Gron being the giant sort of dragon killers, as they're known. Their hearts were sealed into the blade, granting it untold strength. When Ghorhal Hellscream, the father of Grommash, was locked into the jaws of a giant Gron, he found the strength to stab Ghorhal into the Gron's eye and kill it alongside him. When they fell, it was the Gron who died first. As a member of the Old Horde on Draenor, Grom Hellscream took part in the destruction of Shattrath City, Ghorhal in hand, attacking Nabundo, who is an NPC in World of Warcraft. The axe would have cleaved the paladin's torso in 2 if the Draenei had not leaned back, essentially. Already sickened by the red mist, Nabundo was able to crush the fingers of Hellscream's right hand, and his light-based crystalline hammer. This compromised the orc's grip with Ghorhal and prevented Hellscream from attacking him further with the axe. Hellscream had been the first to partake of the Blood of Manaroth ritual, eventually coming to regret it when Thrall met him. It was clear to him that Grom had the means by which to liberate his lethargic brothers and sisters after Hellscream again drank the Blood of Manaroth in Kalimdor. In his hands, Ghorhal was the weapon which slew the demigod Cenarius, which Cenarius was pretty badass, I'm not going to lie. He was pretty fucking powerful, to say the least. During the second coming of the Burning Legion, Hellscream took his axe to the Pit Lord Manaroth after Thrall was beaten into unconsciousness. With a single blow, Hellscream essentially cleaved his adversary adversary's weapon in 2 and slew Manoroth. Hellscream perished shortly afterwards, and he had managed to break the curse over his people, freeing their souls and spirits from the demonic curse forever. This is why the orcs are green. Essentially, they are because of drinking Manoroth's blood. This is what makes the orcs green. This is why orcs that you see, like the Muck-Ghorhal, no. Oh my god, I've forgotten the name of them. The ones that came from Draenor, like from Warlords of Draenor, them ones. This is why you see them as their sort of brown, like tan skin color, brown/tanned, purely because they haven't, in that expansion, they never drank the blood of Manoroth, so their skin didn't essentially change into that pale green that we know or have been accustomed to know throughout our many years of playing World of Warcraft. Before the shattering, Thrall himself gave Ghorhal to Garrosh, who wields it in a duel resulting in the death of Cairn Bloodhoof. Garrosh wielded the legendary weapon wherever he went. When Garrosh foolishly decided to go against the advice of Bane Bloodhoof and Hummel Rune Totem and let the Tauren solve their Quillbore problem, Garrosh barreled forward and assaulted Brambleblade Ravine with 15 guards, essentially. The sole survivor, he nearly lost Ghorhal and his life, were it not for the intervention of Bane, Hummel, and a handful of Sunwalkers. So it's a really cool weapon, Ghorhal, essentially. You can pick it up from the very first time that you see it is in Karazhan, the Karazhan raid from Prince Malchezaar. And essentially, that is the very first time that we see it. You can get it as a drop in Dawn of the Infinites as well, the dungeon that is from the latest patch. It is a drop from there, and it has a unique effect or unique stat that gives it more damage to demons, which is really cool. It's something that you don't see on many weapons nowadays, like these specific stats. So it is a very cool little like addition to it. But let's get into some of these forum posts. Now, some of these are amazing, and I want to address them as best I can. But some of these just feel so weird. So here's the first one. Hardcore is fun, but night elves. I don't know if this has been discussed, but night elves feel underwhelming in hardcore. Wisp is completely useless, unlike most other racials, and Shadowmeld can't get out of a tough spot like later expansions. And getting to either Stormwind or Ironforge for weapon training is incredibly difficult. Is there any thought to balancing this? Yeah, I get it, vanilla, but still, this is not vanilla anymore. Okay, firstly, it is still vanilla. Every single concept is vanilla, apart from the fact that if you die, you can't res. That is the only concept that isn't vanilla. So that's kind of a ridiculous thing to even state. Essentially, with night, no matter what race, you're going to have a difference of, like, the whole point of people liking Classic is because of how different it is. Because you have very unbalanced sort of classes and races and stuff like that. Like, the Horde are just straight up better at PvP in terms of their racials. Just straight up. Orc, if you're going to do PvP, you go Orc every day. Like, it's not even a question. Alliance had a massive disadvantage in that regard, but you kind of accept it and you just be like, I want to play Alliance because I enjoy Alliance, that kind of deal. For Night Elves, Shadowmeld's actually quite decent. 10-second cooldown, you are allowed to drink and eat while Shadowmelded, so you can eat and drink without being interrupted, essentially. It's very nice. You can get a full like mana and health restoral while in stealth. That is very nice, and that's not what a lot of like other classes have. Cannibalize is alright for an undead. Will of the Forsaken is very good. It acts as a PvP sort of utility. You can get out of fears, charms, etc. Orcs, Blood Rage, very good damage. Troll, again, a little bit of haste or whatever, very good. Torum, War Stomp, it's alright. It's not too bad. Gnome, Escape Artist, very good. Dwarves, you have the Poison, the Stone form. And you have humans, which, I mean, if you want to talk about humans, they don't really have a good human racial, do they? Compared to, like, I would honestly say that Shadow Meld is better than Perception. So why not complain about the human racial rather than the Night Elf racial? You know, that kind of thing. They're not great. Both of them are, like, not great either way. But, you know, you can't have one without the other kind of deal. Night Elves you purely pick if you're aesthetically wanting to play a Night Elf. That's kind of it. If you want to play an Alliance character and you want to play a Night Elf or a Gnome, you have to accept that, like, you're giving certain things up. Because I might want to play as a Night Elf, but I'm jealous that the Gnomes have the Escape Artist racial, and I can't necessarily just go and complain like, oh my god, why do they get this and I don't as a Night Elf? Well, why can't I just go and play as a Gnome? Like, if it's really bothering you this much, go and play Gnome. Go and play Human. Go and play Dwarf. It shouldn't bother you to this extent. I get that the Wisp is completely useless. I do understand that. But with these hardcore rules in place, you have obviously a lot of things that will be useless. Resurrections, useless. Unking, or reincarnation for shamans, useless. What was the other one? The soul stones for warlocks, useless. So if you're going to complain about this, then you have to complain about all of them as well, because warlocks don't get a soul stone. They don't get a bit of their, like, kit. Neither do shamans. You know, neither do, like, every healing class, like shaman, priest, like anything like that. Rebirth, we don't have a combat res. No one has a combat res anymore. Druids don't. So, you know, that kind of deal. Everything is meant to be imbalanced in Classic, and that's what people like about it. Now, as for getting to Storm and Ironforge, you're always going to have to deal with that. My advice, when you first spawn in as a level 1, make the journey immediately. Now, this might take you a couple of attempts, but if you die, you're only level 1, so it doesn't matter. You simply remake the character. If you level to level 15 and then make the wetlands run, it's a bit more difficult because you might just insta-die. And you've obviously spent several hours on this character already. So that's a bit more of that feels bad. As a level 1, you probably won't make it. You probably will die in the wetlands, or even like traversing the mountain. But the good thing about this is if there is a mage who is kind enough to portal you, you can get a portal from Darnassus to Ironforge or Stormwind and then half back. Very simple. Because you are allowed to group in World of Warcraft Hardcore. So there is always that sort of route to go around. I feel like this is a bit rough because essentially all he's pissed off about is Night Elves being a bit out of the way. You can say the same for Undead, but obviously Undead do have the Zeppelin to Orgrimmar, whereas Night Elves only have the boat to Wetlands, that kind of. So it is a bit different in that regard. But if it really does bother him that much, him or her, then essentially make a gnome. Make a dwarf, make a human. You have 3 other races. You do not have to play Night Elf. You are not forced to play Night Elf. You have to accept that that is what comes with Night Elves, that you're going to be a bit out of the way from everyone for a while, and you just kind of got to accept it. Also, depending on the class that you play, you don't necessarily need, like, anything, like, too quickly. If you're a rogue, you still know daggers. You don't necessarily need to know swords immediately. It's not like you're going to get... what's a good sword? Like the chromatic, like, blade or whatever from Blackwing Lair. No, you're probably going to get a sword that has 1 agility and, you know, a little bit extra damage, 0.2 damage per second, something like that. It's not going to be insane. All right, you can wait a bit and you can have some self-control. It's not that crazy. It's not that deep. All right. The second forum page is something. Is it wrong to gear check people for dungeons? This is on the WoW Classic Hardcore forum page. I'm curious to see how people feel about this, but on my ult, I'm running some friends through dead mines, and for the most part, our entire party is level 21 to 24, with mostly blues, and we're just doing it to fill in an item or two from the last bosses. We are looking for 2 other people, and we ended up having to deny a bunch of people because most of their gear was green/white, and they didn't even have anything enchanted yet. This led to people complaining about our party in trade chat, and we had to deal with some hate because of it. It's our party, we get to make the rules, and I don't see why it's such a big deal if we have certain expectations for the people we want partying with us. I guess I don't see anything wrong with it, but people are making it seem like we're in the wrong. Now, if this is for Hardcore Classic, level 21 to 24 dungeons, let's say through Dead Mines. This is for Dead Mines. Okay. So this is for Dead Mines, level 21 to 24. Van Cleef is like level 24, if I believe correctly. Something along that line, 24, 25. Now, it is kind of bad that you are gear checking people at this level, because the amount of blues that are in the game at this level are very scarce. You might get lucky with a couple drops, etc. But if they are in greens and whites maybe not, so you'd expect them to at least just be in greens. If they're in greens, they're fine. Depending on the class, they probably do more damage than some people anyway, who are like full blues at this level. That's the difference, because if you have a warrior in your group that's full blue, okay? Now, warriors scale very well with gear. So if you have a warrior in full blues, but you have a mage at the same level who's in all greens, you probably see the mage do about the same damage as the warrior, if not more, to be honest. Plus, the mage can bring other utility, roots, polymorph, like slows, and that's at level 21, like ish. You know, AoE as well. They can bring a lot to the table. So I think they're being a little bit too harsh. And I think people with greens are more than fine to like join your group. But like he said, it is his group, so if they really want to be picky, by all means. It would be annoying though to be on the receiving end of this and get turned down because I have one white piece of gear still, like a white back piece or something, and I'm in like all greens on a level 21 character. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm in all greens on a level 42 like hardcore mage. It's ridiculous. Would I get turned down for their group because I just don't have a, like, if I'm level 42 and I apply, are they going to turn me down because I'm in greens? No, they're going to accept me because of my level. So they can be as picky as they want, but ultimately it will get people to hate you because there isn't really a gear requirement for this. You're putting gear requirements on a level 21 to 24 dungeon. I get that it's hardcore and you don't want to die, but that feels a bit rough. That is kind of like gatekeeping dungeons in like retail or Wrath of the Lich King, where it's like, oh, you need 5k gear score to join and all of that bullshit. It's a level 21 to 24 dungeon. Your gear at that point does not scale your spell power or your melee damage. It will scale your melee damage actually, but not spell power for casters. If you have intellect, if you have mana, you're doing damage. You're doing the same damage whether you're in blues or in all whites as a caster at that level. The only difference is you can cast more spells. That's literally it. Because no gear until you get to like a decent level, like there's probably a couple pieces at level 20, a few pieces at level 30, several at level 40, stuff like that, that give plus spell power, like damage essentially. So that will not change. And I think that they are being a little bit too picky. Moving on to the next one. This one is quite funny. This guy has gone on to a WoW Classic Hardcore forum. And classic hardcore forum, and this is the title: Quitting because class balance in vanilla World of Warcraft. Okay, first off, I didn't die. I always knew that the class I was playing, Feral DPS, had low DPS. I thought it would be 25% lower than other DPS classes in the extreme side. I was wrong. After checking some raid logs, I realised that Fury Warrior does 300% more DPS than Feral. Even Prot Warrior out DPS Kitty. This huge margin is ridiculous, but that's just the beginning. Shadow Priest, Boomkin, and basically all specs except Fire Mage do 2 to 3 times less damage than Fury Warriors. I think this guy's on the wrong forum. I think this guy wants to go on the WoW Classic forum and not the Classic 4 forum. But firstly, no, he hasn't died yet. Okay, he has not died. Okay, so this guy is talking about Feral DPS, but he is not max level. He is simply just saying that it does less DPS. Now, yes, it does. And that's because it's a very weird spec. The whole purpose of the spec is to have a level 40-odd helm with spirit when your main stat is agility, and you're meant to just keep switching in and out of cat form to get your energy ticks, essentially. That is how you do DPS. Now, Warrior does do a shit ton more damage than most things, but he's saying like Shadow Priest, Boomkin, and basically all specs except Fire Mage. No, Rogues are very good. Rogues were very much up there. Very good Hunters can be up there. You can be up there if like you're very skilled at your class. Obviously, everyone being skilled at their class, you're going to have Warriors still at the very top and Feral Druids at the bottom. But again, this is the class that you picked and you wanted to play. You kind of knew that it was going to be bad. You can do a lot of in-depth research about this, as World of Warcraft has been out for 20 years, nearly. Like, it's absolutely crazy how much research is out there for, like, every single specialization in every single expansion, that kind of deal. But I imagine he's leveled 20 to 30. Yeah, it's not going to be the highest DPS in class, because Feral Cat isn't until probably Wrath. You get like some good gear and stuff, or like it feels a bit more fluent with Mangle, your Savage Roars, your Rip, your Rake damage, stuff like that. But yeah, I this guy complaining about class balance is definitely not the most ideal candidate to be on the forum, because he is talking about vanilla class balance. It's like insane. I play Boomkin in vanilla. I enjoyed Boomkin so much because I had to put in a lot more effort to get to like a decent DPS, and I find that more engaging rather than just pressing Bloodthirst, Heroic Strike. Oh, cool, I'm doing top DPS. No, I had to actually engage my brain and be like, okay, I've got to do this, and then this is next. I've got to dot that up, but now I'm so I've got to innovate myself. I've got to use a mana pot now so that mana pot comes off cooldown when like I'm a little bit lower, you know, that kind of deal. Yeah, I don't get it, because Feral DPS isn't actually that bad lower level, like 20, 30, 40. It is when you start getting to the higher end and people get like very good gear, that's when you can really tell the difference. And I'm guessing this guy is not max level already, like in Naxxramas, getting full world buffs on a hardcore server. So yeah, you can do your research. There is a lot out there to help you, but essentially you're trying to get them to change the class balance in vanilla World of Warcraft when you know that it's imbalanced in vanilla World of Warcraft, and that's the like charm to it. Alright, one last one, and then we will call it. So, PvPer has no reason to play. Hardcore mode has no PvP. It does, you can wargame, plus Mutgorah. Classic era is an AV PvE fest. I can kind of understand that, because a lot of people do go into AV for the PvE, for the reputation. PvE gear is best in slot in PvP for every class. Yes, it is for Classic. For Wrath of Lich King, it certainly isn't. Maybe some pieces, but most of it, you kind of need the resilience. Classic Plus, please overhaul this 20-year-old PvP system, give incentives for world PvP, update PvP gear to compete with PvE gear, etc., etc. Get it done, Blizz. This was, when was this posted? 5 hours ago, not from when the podcast was released, I can tell you that much. But 5 hours ago, it's currently the 2nd of the 9th that I'm recording this. I have to pre-record this because I'm away for a couple of weeks. Firstly, they have overhauled the PvP system. They literally did like multiple tests on it in the past like month for Classic era PvP. So I don't think he's tried that, and I think he needs to try that to see how it feels. It might still be a PvE fest, but you know, it is what it is. Secondly, he has not mentioned Wrath of the Lich King PvP, which is a very good sort of standard for PvP, in my opinion. It's a very balanced thing. Like, you have class niches, which you have advantage against, disadvantage against, but you can still win. You have class like uniqueness still and stuff like that. And then you have Dragonflight, which is a completely different PvP experience. It is where PvP gear is the best gear that you can get for PvP. It is, you can do battlegrounds to just chill and still get some honor gear, get some decent gear and gear up an ult and stuff like that. But he is completely just talking about vanilla. And vanilla was never meant to be a PvP game. Like, it was all about PvE. It was all about like raiding and dungeons and the community aspect. It wasn't about there wasn't really a PvP scene in Classic. And they have overhauled the PvP system. Whether they introduce new gear is a little bit different, but it'll be tough to balance it, because if you put PvP gear that's easy to acquire, then suddenly that's probably the best gear that you can get in PvE, because it's got a lot more hit on it, or it's got a lot more crit on it, or, you know, something like that. Something along them lines usually like happen. But essentially he's disregarding 2 of the World of Warcrafts. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And you do have like Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin. They're quite fun. They're actually quite enjoyable. Now, depending on the class that you play, they're enjoyable or not. But he's essentially said Arathi Basin is hopping. I don't know what he means by that, but yeah, you hop from base to base to protect it. If you've got 3 of the flags out of the 5, just because it's a numbers game. If you control 3 out of 5, you're going to win eventually. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But he has neglected 2 of the Warcrafts that are currently out there, and he hasn't acknowledged that there is a new system for PvP in Classic era. Plus, the hardcore PvP is there. You have the Muck Garage, the 1v1s and stuff. You do have war games for the hardcore servers as well, if you want to go against a different team. You know, that kind of deal. It's very tough to say, in my opinion. But that is it for this episode. Thank you all very much for listening. Do check out all of the social medias down below. We have Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, constant stuff happening down there. And the support the show link is also down in the descriptions, and it would mean a massive thank you to the tavern, and you can get a shout out for helping us out. Thank you all very much for listening, and go with valor, friend. Goodbye all.